Gettysburg, a name soaked in blood. 3 days that bent the Civil War toward its brutal end. We know the outcome. Lee's army shattered against Union forces. But beneath textbook explanations lie puzzles that defy logic. Why did victory slip through Confederate fingers? Tonight we spotlight 5 baffling controversies. Ewell's paralyzing hesitation on the high ground, Longstreet's 6 critical lost hours, the catastrophic blind spot toward Little Round Top, the tragic logic behind Pickett's charge, and Stuart's absent cavalry that left Lee blind. These aren't just misfortunes, they're cascading failures that still leave historians whispering, "This doesn't add up." Strap in as we dissect Gettysburg's greatest mysteries. And if uncovering war's unsolved puzzles compels you, hit the subscribe button now. Your support fuels our mission to explore history's shadows. Now to our first enigma. Shattered Union forces reel through Gettysburg as dusk falls on the battle's first day. The strategic high ground, Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill, lies undefended. Lee's order echoes, "Take those hills if practicable." Commanding the victorious corps is Richard Ewell, renowned for aggression under Stonewall Jackson. Yet he freezes. He hesitates as twilight deepens. Why? Scouts reported minimal resistance. Momentum screamed opportunity. By every military measure, it was imperative. Yet Ewell halts. Union reinforcements flood the heights under cover of darkness. Those hills became unbreakable anchors of Meade's defense. This moment haunts every analysis. Was it indecision? Overcaution from his new command? A failure to grasp terrain? Victory's door stood open. Ewell refused to cross. Dawn on July 2nd breaks with Lee's urgent command. James Longstreet, his old warhorse, must crush the Union left flank immediately. But 6 critical hours evaporate. Longstreet's corps remains motionless until 4 p.m. When the assault finally erupts at Little Round Top, Union reserves are already sprinting to plug gaps. The delay proves catastrophic. Why the stall? Longstreet cited concealed routes and countermarches. Others whispered of deliberate obstruction. He'd vehemently opposed attacking at Gettysburg. Did professional dissent become operational sabotage, fog of war, or a fatal lapse in judgment? Those lost hours were the narrow window needed to collapse Meade's line before reinforcements solidified it. The staggering cost in blood and squandered advantage makes Longstreet's inaction one of Gettysburg's most toxic mysteries. Urgency met invisible resistance. As Confederates lunged toward the Union left, a jagged truth went unseen. The rocky crown of Little Round Top, the linchpin of the entire flank, stood virtually undefended. Union General Gouverneur Warren raced up its slopes, glimpsing disaster. He frantically diverted troops to its crest. The 20th Maine scrambled into position minutes before Confederates surged up the boulders. Heroic defense prevailed, but the core failure endures. How did Lee and Longstreet miss this? This wasn't just high ground. It dominated the southern battlefield. Capture meant Confederate cannons could shred the Union line end to end. How could seasoned commanders planning a massive flank attack fail to identify the highest, most commanding terrain on that flank as both empty and decisive? It reeks of reconnaissance failing at its most fundamental level. Scouts blinded, reports ignored, a catastrophic lapse in terrain assessment. Victory's keystone hid in plain sight. After 2 days of brutal failures, Lee faced July 3rd with a wounded but dangerous army. Logic demanded withdrawal or maneuver. Instead came history's most infamous command: 12,500 men ordered across a mile of open fields against the fortified Union center. Carnage, futility. The charge collapsed in 50 minutes. Why launch it? This decision remains Gettysburg's crown jewel of illogic. It violated military doctrine, Lee's own tactical genius, and his officers' eyewitness warnings. Lee believed the Union center must be weakened after the flank battles. But Longstreet reported its untouched strength. The massive artillery barrage boomed impressively, but changed nothing. Ordering a near-suicidal assault against the strongest, most obvious position after previous failures seems strategically unhinged. Overconfidence? Desperation? A fatal misreading of Union resilience? The mathematical certainty of slaughter makes this choice the battle's most haunting why. It feels like valor sacrificed to delusion. Underpinning this cascade of strangeness was an intelligence void. The man J.E.B. Stuart, Lee's cavalry commander. He vanished during the campaign's critical days, riding circles around the Union Army. Absent at Gettysburg's first contact, absent for 2 bloody days. Lee moved blind, stumbling into battle, ignorant of Meade's strength or positions. Why this dereliction? Stuart's duty was reconnaissance, the eyes Lee desperately needed. Choosing raiding over corps missions was professional malpractice. But deeper questions linger. Why did Lee tolerate such detachment? Where were contingency plans? Stuart's absence meant Lee committed to Gettysburg without knowing the odds, misjudged Union capabilities repeatedly, and made fatal choices in an information desert. That the Confederacy's most celebrated cavalryman vanished at its decisive hour felt like fate's cruel joke. The Army's eyes were closed when vision mattered most. The fields of Gettysburg fell silent on July 3, 1863, but the echoes of those 3 days would forever haunt the American soul. Robert E. Lee, the South's revered strategist, had marched his Army of Northern Virginia into Pennsylvania with audacious confidence. Against him stood George Gordon Meade, the cautious Union commander thrust into leadership just days before the storm broke. What unfolded was less a single battle than a brutal symphony of collisions. Over 50,000 men fallen in farmyards, orchards, and rocky hillsides. On day 1, Confederate forces under A.P. Hill and Richard Ewell drove Union troops through Gettysburg streets in seeming triumph. Yet when Ewell stood at the base of Cemetery Hill as twilight bled across the landscape, his hesitation to seize that vital high ground allowed Winfield Scott Hancock's rallied Union Corps to dig in like granite. Dawn on day 2 revealed Lee's grand design. James Longstreet's massive flank attack meant to crumple the Union left. But as precious hours slipped away, hours Longstreet's men spent marching and countermarching in the humid July heat. Union generals like Dan Sickles advanced recklessly only to be shattered, while others like Gouverneur Warren raced to plug fatal gaps. Warren's desperate scramble up Little Round Top's boulder-strewn slopes, redeploying men like Joshua Chamberlain's 20th Maine just moments before Confederate tides surged against them, became legend. Yet that desperate heroism masked a deeper Confederate failure. How had Lee and Longstreet overlooked that pivotal hill? By nightfall, the wheat field ran crimson, Devil's Den choked with corpses, and the peach orchard became a charnel house. Southern valor had clawed to the brink of victory, only to be hurled back. On the thunderous morning of day 3, Lee gambled everything. Ignoring Longstreet's grave warnings, he ordered George Pickett's fresh division, alongside Pettigrew's and Trimble's battered brigades, nearly 12,500 men, to march across a mile of open Pennsylvania farmland toward the Union center on Cemetery Ridge. What followed was not battle, but sacrifice. Union artillery under Henry Hunt and infantry behind stone walls unleashed hell. Armistead fell with his hand on a Union cannon. Kemper was shattered. Garnett died in the saddle. In 50 minutes, the grand charge dissolved into broken remnants, stumbling back across fields littered with the flower of Southern manhood. And through it all, the absence of J.E.B. Stuart's cavalry hung like a pall. Lee had moved blind, fought blind, gambled blind. Meade held, but barely. When the smoke cleared, the South's high tide had receded forever on this blood-soaked ground, not just from failed courage, but from a cascade of baffling choices. The hill not taken, the hours lost, the hill unseen, the charge ordered against reason, and the eyes that never saw. Gettysburg became not merely a defeat, but a riddle carved in stone. 5 fractures in Gettysburg's story: Ewell's frozen moment, Longstreet's phantom hours, the invisible hill, the doomed charge, and the missing eyes. Together they form a sequence that challenges military logic: fate, hubris, or secrets buried with the fallen. We dissect maps and memoirs, but these whys still whisper from Pennsylvania fields. What's your verdict on Gettysburg's strangest twist? The comment section awaits your theories. If dissecting history's unsolved mysteries compels you, smash that like button and subscribe right now. It tells us you want more deep dives into the unexplained. Subscribe and tap the bell for journeys into America's shadowed past, where we confront the events that simply don't add up. Until next time, keep questioning. Some doors to the past remain stubbornly locked.